Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss? Where today I'll be breaking down the 10th episode of the final season of Better Call Saul, titled Nippy. This episode featured the return of Jimmy McGill's latest and presumably final alias, Gene Takovic, as he is able to track down a taxicab driver who had recognized him last season and entangle him in a new scam. While this episode may not have had the shocking moments that we are used to seeing this season, it was an interesting character piece that showed us how different Gene is from his days as Saul and even Jimmy. But this episode also shows us how easy it is for an addict like Jimmy to slip, forgive the pun, back into his old and dangerous habits. You may also have some questions about the casting of the two other players in this episode, and I will try and answer those questions while also sharing some other connections to Breaking Bad in this episode that you may have missed. But before I get into that, I want to thank you for clicking on this video, and if you do enjoy it, please remember to hit the like button so YouTube doesn't hide my video in the Ed Galbraith relocation plan. The title of the episode is a reference to the name Gene uses for his fake dog when starting a scam. But the title also stops the trend this season of each episode title having an X and Y reference, such as the episode's Fun and Games, as well as Wine and Roses. This may be because, unlike the episodes prior to this one, this episode follows only one character's story arc instead of also following characters like Kim and Gus. In fact, besides Bob Odenkirk and one of the actors who plays a mall cop, this episode features no other actors that have appeared on Better Call Saul before. Or perhaps, this change in title is due to Kim not being a part of the episode, since her character is likewise so important to this season and the series. Also, the intro to this series has been glitching more and more each week, until finally this week it gets to a point where it stops and ends on an old VHS screen. This not only signifies Jimmy's descent into a grittier world, but it may also be a reference to the toll that this life is taking on Jimmy, and that we have finally gotten close to the end of his tape or story. This episode also featured one of the most critically acclaimed television actresses of all time as a guest star, as in the very first scene we are introduced to Marion, played by Carol Burnett. You may have forgotten, but Carol Burnett was actually referenced by Chuck way back in the Season 2 episode Rebecca, when he and his wife at the time agreed to use Miss Burnett's famous gesture as an alert to each other when they want the night with Jimmy to end. Better Call Saul co-creator Vince Gilligan is a huge fan of Miss Burnett and was even present at her groundbreaking show's 50th anniversary special. Similarly, Miss Burnett is a huge fan of both Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, having confessed as much to Jimmy Kimmel in 2018, which may have led to her casting in this role.
What do you watch?
Oh, I'm crazy about anything Vince Gilligan writes.
He's the greatest.
He did Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul.
Yep.
Vince Gilligan is known to cast actors and actresses that he grew up admiring in his stories, such as casting film actor Robert Forster in the role of Ed Galbraith during Breaking Bad's final season. At the grocery store, Marion asks for something from the butcher after trying some sharp cheddar cheese from Schnoz Farms. This is a fun reference to longtime Vince Gilligan collaborator Thomas Schnoz, who has written and directed many episodes of both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. After Marion leaves the grocery store, her scooter gets caught up on some ice. You can tell by looking at the snow that it was laid there recently and is not packed down like the snow around it, showing that someone just put it there. As she gets stuck, we see Gene hanging flyers for a missing dog named Nippy. If you call the number listed on the flyer, you actually hear a heartfelt message left by Gene about Nippy, thanks to fan of the channel Jared Markowitz for pointing that out. Gene is able to disable Marion's scooter further with a small pair of clippers so that she needs him to push her home. Even as Jimmy, he has always had a way with senior citizens and started his practice by creating wills for the elderly during the show's first season, which led to him creating the case against Sandpiper Crossing. Next, we are reintroduced to the character Jeff, who was introduced in the first episode of the fourth season, titled Smoke. You may have been confused by the fact that this character was recast since he was last seen in the fifth season. This is because the actor who originally played the character, Don Harvey, could not film his scenes for this season due to his commitment to the HBO miniseries We Own This City. In a sort of irony, after playing a character on Better Call Saul, which of course is a successor to Breaking Bad, one of the most popular series to come out of the early 2000s, Mr. Lindsay was cast in We Own This City, which itself is the spiritual successor to another one of the most critically acclaimed series of the 2000s, The Wire. In the kitchen, Gene is sitting and drinking schnapps with Marion when Jeff walks in. Gene taunts Jeff, first by making him recite the same story he already told him about meeting Sammy Hagar in the 5th season episode Magic Man. He also invites himself over for dinner while briefly recreating the pose from the Norman Rockwell painting Freedom from Want. After eating, Gene speaks to Jeff about what his angle is. Gene says that he knows that Jeff wants in the game and that he will provide him an opportunity to do so. Gene then returns back to his apartment and retrieves his old pinky ring, which used to be worn by his good friend Marco and that Saul was seen wearing during his time on Breaking Bad. This ring seems to be the totem that turns Jimmy or Gene back into Saul Goodman, much like how Walter White would put on a black hat to become Heisenberg. Gene begins his con by serving the two night security guards at the mall Cinnabons. The younger of the two recognizes Gene from earlier when he told the suspected shoplifter to say nothing and call a lawyer in the third season episode Mabel. The second security guard is played by actor Jim O'Hare, who also played Jerry Gergich on the series Parks and Recreation. That show also featured a guest star from the Breaking Bad Better Call Saul world, as actor Jonathan Banks, who plays Mike Ehrmantraut, also played Ben Wyatt's father in an episode of Parks and Rec. Frank,
Damn it, Jerry!
begins to talk about Nebraska football and a quarterback named Zach Martinez. Since he was an actual quarterback for the University of Nebraska football team, and Frank mentions this is his freshman season, this would put this series now in the year 2010, around the month of October, which is just a mere 1 month after the death of Walter White in this universe. Since it has already been confirmed that Bryan Cranston will be reprising his role as Walter White on this series, this must mean that we will get at least some flashbacks over the next 3 episodes. In the 4th season episode Quite a Ride, in a flash forward, we saw Saul tell Francesca to be at a specific payphone on November 12th, which would be after these events that take place in October.
And where are you going to be November 12th at 3 p.m.?
I'll be there, but if it doesn't ring at 3 on the dot, I'm gone.
Don't worry, it's going to ring.
We learned during this series that November 12th is Jimmy's birthday, and if you recall, the last season of Breaking Bad was framed by Walt's 51st and 52nd birthdays after showing his 50th birthday in the very first episode. Coincidentally, November 12th, 2010 would also be Jimmy's 50th birthday. We are then shown a montage of Gene becoming closer with the security guards while he times how long it takes for Frank to finish his Cinnabon. He then plots out his plan by marking how many steps it takes to steal the highest number of items in the least amount of time. Showing the intricacies of this plan really reminded me of the last season of Breaking Bad and how we saw Walter White plan elaborate strategies, such as using a large magnet to destroy Gus's laptop and the train heist. When Jeff starts to doubt Gene's plan, he tells him a very brief history of Walter White.
50-year-old high school chemistry teacher comes into my office. Is so broke, he can't pay his own mortgage. 1 year later, he's got a pile of cash as big as a Volkswagen. That's crazy.
We then see a store manager in the mall who is met with an unexpected delivery. This delivery turns out to be a Trojan horse of sorts, as inside is Jeff waiting for his time to emerge. She is convinced by Gene, playing another alias, to keep the item overnight, which allows his plan to take place. After getting off the phone, Gene does the "It's Showtime" gesture into the mirror that we have seen him do in the past. Gene gives Frank his Cinnabon and gives Jeff the signal to begin. While Jeff is running around, he slips and falls on the same spot that the store manager mentioned earlier. This really reminded me of the Breaking Bad scene in which Ted Beneke slips on a rug at his house after noticing it earlier in the episode Crawl Space. Gene is forced to stall Frank from checking the security feeds until Jeff gets up. He becomes very distraught and personal with Frank, which makes him uncomfortable. This was the same tactic that Walter White used when he wanted to get Hank out of his office so that he could plant and then remove a bug during Breaking Bad's 5th season. The scheme looks to have been a success, and Gene meets up with Jeff at his house. There he tells them that they are not friends, and the only reason he did this was so that Jeff would never be able to out him as Saul Goodman without going to jail for the crimes that they just committed. Gene states that they are forever connected through the concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD. Before he leaves, Gene makes Jeff say the words "we're done" in a similar fashion to Walter White's infamous "say my name" conversation in the desert on Breaking Bad.
Come on, say it. We're done.
Now, say my name.
Gene returns to work at Cinnabon with a better attitude after not only pulling off the heist, but ridding himself of the fear of being outed by Jeff. He even stops at the department store and picks out a very colorful shirt and tie, but in the end he puts them back. This is a very meaningful moment in the episode, because it shows that Gene has not fully regressed into his Saul persona. The most dangerous high for a recovering addict like Gene is the high that you can get away with, because it makes you feel like you can go back to your old ways with perhaps a better outcome, which is never the case. So it was powerful to see Gene take a step back when it looked like he was going to turn running towards his old life. I'm very interested to see where this series goes now, since the Jeff plotline was seemingly wrapped up in this episode. I believe that since this episode occurs in October of 2012, that we may see Gene try and make the phone call for his birthday, which is almost assuredly from Kim. While it has only been months since we saw Gene as Saul in the Breaking Bad universe, it has been over 2 years since we have seen what Kim is up to. This could mean that she has established a completely different life by this point, but like Gene in this episode, she may be yearning to dip her toes back into her old life again. Since the authorities must know about Kim and Saul's relationship, I would not be surprised if they are waiting for Saul to contact Kim, similar to how Gus was waiting for Lalo to contact Hector this season, so it will be interesting to see how these events pan out. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?